I woke up to the sound of a machine telling me I was still alive, and a stranger handing me proof that my wife had been waiting for the opposite. At first, I could not move much. My chest felt tight beneath the hospital gown, my throat was dry, and every breath scraped like sandpaper. The room smelled like antiseptic, warm plastic, and that strange recycled air every hospital in America seems to pump through its walls. Somewhere above me, fluorescent lights buzzed softly. Somewhere beside me, a heart monitor kept counting what Lauren must have hoped would stop. Beep, beep, beep. I remember blinking at the ceiling tiles, trying to make sense of where I was. Recovery room, Cleveland, St. Matthew's Medical Center. For hours after open heart surgery. The kind of morning where a man should wake up grateful, confused, maybe scared. The kind of morning where his wife should be sitting in the chair beside him, holding his hand, pretending not to cry. But Lauren's chair was empty. Her purse was not on the floor. Her coat was not hanging on the back of the visitor chair. No coffee cup. No lipstick-stained napkin. Nothing. Just a gray plastic chair pulled back at a slight angle, like someone had sat there long enough to be seen, then left before caring became inconvenient. A nurse named Kelly noticed my eyes moving and leaned over me with the practiced softness of someone who had seen men wake up from the edge before. "Easy, Mr. Carter," she said. "You're through it. Surgery went well." I tried to answer, but my voice came out as air. She lifted a small cup with a straw to my lips. The water tasted like metal and mercy. I swallowed twice. Then I saw the man standing near the doorway. Not a doctor. Not family. Navy suit. Brown shoes. A leather folder tucked under one arm. He looked uncomfortable in that room, the way legal paperwork always looks wrong around 4 tubes and prayer. Kelly followed my stare and lowered her voice. He said it was time-sensitive. Time-sensitive. That is a polite phrase people use when they do not want to say cruel. The man stepped closer, cleared his throat, and asked if I was Michael Carter. I wanted to laugh. I had just survived a surgeon, opening my chest, and now this guy needed confirmation before opening whatever Lauren had sent to finish the job emotionally. My fingers were weak, but I managed a small nod. He placed a white envelope on the rolling table beside my bed. My name was printed across the front in clean black letters. Michael James Carter. Not Mike. Not Honey. Not the man who built a life with her for 18 years. Just a legal name on a legal package. I stared at it until the edges sharpened. My hands did not shake because they barely worked yet. Kelly asked if I wanted her to call my wife. That was when the first real sound came out of me, low and rough. No, the man in the suit looked away. Kelly froze for half a second, then stepped back. I turned my head just enough to see the return address. Caldwell, Pierce and Whitman. Family law. My body was too tired for anger, but my mind was suddenly wide awake. Lauren had filed for divorce while I was under anesthesia. While a team of doctors worked to keep blood moving through my heart, she had a law firm move paper through a courthouse. She probably imagined me helpless, sedated, foggy, too weak to understand. And maybe I would have been, if I had not heard her the night before outside pre-op, speaking in that whisper she used when she thought the world belonged to her. "Once he's under, file it." She never knew my eyes were closed, but I was not asleep. She never knew the anesthesia had not started yet. She never knew I heard every word. So when that envelope sat beside my hospital bed, I did not ask why. I did not ask how. I only looked at the empty chair where my wife should have been and understood something colder than betrayal. Lauren had not left me because I was dying. She had filed because she was afraid I might live. I did not open the envelope right away. That surprises people when I tell this part, but pain has a way of making simple things feel like mountains. My fingers were stiff from the 4 tape, my chest felt packed with hot gravel, and the plastic rails on the hospital bed made me feel less like a husband and more like property being monitored. The envelope sat 6 inches from my hand, white, flat, patient. It did not need to hurry. It had already arrived exactly when Lauren wanted it to. Nurse Kelly adjusted the blanket over my legs and pretended not to look at the return address. She was kind enough to give me dignity by acting like she had not just watched a man receive the coldest delivery of his life. The process server muttered something about wishing me a smooth recovery, then left with the quick steps of a man who wanted fresh air and distance from whatever he had just become part of. The door whispered shut behind him. For a moment, the room was only machines and breath. Beep, beep, beep. I stared at that envelope until the letters blurred. Caldwell, Pierce and Whitman. Lauren had chosen a downtown firm with marble floors and glass conference rooms, the kind of place that charges $400 an hour to say the word fairness with a straight face. I knew that because I had seen the name before. 2 weeks earlier, on a Tuesday evening, while Lauren thought I was asleep in the recliner, her phone lit up on the kitchen island. I was not snooping. Not then. I was just trying to stand without my chest tightening. The cardiologist had already warned me not to ignore symptoms, and I had been ignoring them like a fool because men like me confuse endurance with wisdom. Her screen flashed once. Appointment confirmed. Caldwell, Pierce and Whitman. Family consultation. I remember the refrigerator humming. I remember the smell of chicken noodle soup she had heated but not cooked. I remember Lauren walking in, seeing my eyes on the phone, and turning it face down with a smile too clean to be innocent. Just estate planning, she said. With your surgery coming up, we need to be responsible. Responsible. That word landed soft at the time. Now it landed like a brick. Because the night before surgery, the truth had stopped pretending. I was lying behind a curtain in pre-op, wearing a thin gown, a blue cap, and a wedding ring they had taped instead of removing because my finger had swollen slightly. Lauren stood outside the curtain with Derek Holloway. She thought the curtain was a wall. It was not. It was fabric. Fabric does not keep secrets. Derek's voice was low, smooth, careful. The timing matters. Lauren answered without hesitation. Once he is under, file it. If he wakes up confused, that helps us. If there are complications, even better for the petition. There are sentences that do not explode when you hear them. They sink. They settle at the bottom of you and turn everything above them cold. I did not move. I did not pull the curtain back. I did not say her name. A nurse came in seconds later, checked my bracelet, and asked me to count backward when the anesthesiologist arrived. I looked at Lauren when she stepped inside. She kissed my forehead like she was posing for a memory. Her hand was warm. Her eyes were dry. I love you, she whispered. I almost answered out of habit. Habit is dangerous. It will make you protect the person cutting the rope. So I only nodded. And before they wheeled me away, I did the one thing Lauren never expected from the man she believed was too sick, too trusting, too loyal to prepare. I asked Nurse Kelly for my personal bag. I said I wanted to check one message from my attorney. Lauren's face changed for half a second. Just half. But I saw it. I sent 3 words to Nathan Brooks. She is moving. Then I handed the phone back, closed my eyes, and let them take me toward the operating room. So when that envelope waited beside my hospital bed hours later, it was not the beginning of the betrayal. It was confirmation. Lauren had made her move. She just did not know I had made mine first. People remember the day a marriage ends, but they forget the years it took to die. Lauren and I did not begin with lawyers, hospital rooms, and envelopes with my full legal name printed across the front. We began in a 1-bedroom apartment outside Akron with a noisy wall heater, a coffee table we found on Craigslist, and a checking account that looked tired by the 15th of every month. I was 32 then, still driving medical equipment at night for another company, hauling oxygen concentrators, wheelchairs, monitors, and surgical supply crates across northeastern Ohio in a 12-year-old box truck that smelled like cardboard and diesel. Lauren was 28, working the front desk at a dental office, wearing clearance rack blouses and believing in me with a kind of faith I did not think I deserved. On Friday nights, we ate frozen pizza on paper plates and planned a future like 2 people drawing blueprints on fogged glass. I told her I wanted to start my own logistics company someday, one that specialized in hospitals and clinics, one that delivered on time because patients could not wait for somebody else's excuse. She listened like I was not dreaming too big. She would sit cross-legged on the carpet, calculator in her hand, asking about fuel costs, insurance, route density, warehouse rent. Back then, her questions felt like partnership. Back then, numbers were something we faced together, not weapons she would one day point at me. The first truck I bought under Carter Medical Logistics had a cracked windshield and a liftgate that stuck when it rained. I paid $6,800 for it, and even that felt reckless. Lauren made the first invoice template on her old laptop. She taped a handwritten sign above our kitchen table that said, "Deliver like someone is waiting for their father to come home." I laughed when I saw it, but I kept that sentence. It became our company culture before we had employees, before we had uniforms, before anyone in Cleveland knew my name. For years, we built slowly. I drove. She answered phones after work. I loaded crates at 4 in the morning. She tracked mileage with color-coded spreadsheets. When our first real contract came through with a regional surgery center, she cried in the parking lot and hugged me so hard I dropped the keys. Those were good years. Hard, plain, exhausting, but good. We were not rich, but we were pointed in the same direction. That matters more than people think. A marriage can survive bad luck if both people are facing the storm together. It cannot survive when one person starts studying the exits. By year 10, Carter Medical Logistics had 12 trucks, a small warehouse near Interstate 77, and contracts from clinics across 3 counties. I hired drivers, dispatchers, a compliance manager, and eventually a chief operations guy who could handle the details I used to carry in my head. Lauren quit the dental office and helped with vendor relations for a while. She had a gift for making people feel important. Hospital administrators loved her. Drivers liked her. I loved watching her walk into our office wearing a navy blazer in confidence, because I thought she was proud of what we had built. I thought every polished smile was for us. Looking back, I can see when pride turned into appetite. It did not happen all at once. It never does. First, she stopped saying our company and started saying your company when she was annoyed, then my husband's company when she wanted to impress someone. She upgraded her car before we upgraded the warehouse heating system. She started talking about country clubs, charity galas, lake houses, and the kind of friends who asked what neighborhood you lived in before they asked how you were. I told myself she had earned some comfort. Maybe she had. We both had. But comfort is different from hunger. Comfort rests. Hunger counts. By the time my cardiologist told me I needed surgery, Lauren had already become fluent in the language of valuation, beneficiary rights, and control. I just did not want to translate what that meant. I kept seeing the woman on the carpet with the calculator. I kept hearing her laugh in that old apartment when the heater rattled like loose coins. Memory can be a dangerous witness. It tells the truth about who someone was, then asks you to ignore who they became. In that hospital bed, with the divorce envelope waiting beside me and my chest stitched under a clean white bandage, I finally understood that I had been grieving the wrong woman. The Lauren I loved had disappeared long before the surgery. The woman who filed those papers had simply stopped pretending to be her. The first time my heart warned me, I blamed it on work. That is what men like me do when our bodies start whispering. We call it stress, coffee, age, bad sleep, anything except the truth. I was 46 years old, 6 feet tall, 205 pounds, and still stubborn enough to believe a full calendar meant I was healthy. The tightness came on. A Monday morning in the warehouse while I was reviewing delivery routes near the loading dock. A driver named Marcus was explaining a delay at a clinic in Youngstown, and halfway through his sentence, the room tilted slightly. Not dramatically. Not enough for anyone else to panic. Just enough for the edge of the clipboard in my hand to feel suddenly far away. My chest tightened like someone had pulled a belt one notch too hard under my ribs. I smiled through it, signed the route sheet, told Marcus to take Interstate 76 instead of the back roads. Then I walked to my office, closed the door, and sat in my chair until the gray spots at the edge of my vision faded. I should have called a doctor that minute. Instead, I checked my email. Pride is quiet when it is killing you. 2 weeks later, it happened again while Lauren and I were at dinner downtown. She had picked a restaurant with white tablecloths, small portions, and valet parking that cost more than my first week of groceries after we got married. I remember the candle between us, the waiter describing salmon like it had a resume, and Lauren scrolling through her phone beneath the table with her thumb moving fast. I pressed 2 fingers against my sternum and tried to breathe normally. She looked up, not with fear, but irritation, like my discomfort had interrupted something more important. "Are you doing that thing again?" she asked. That thing. Not pain. Not warning. Not my husband might be in trouble. Just that thing. I said I was fine because the word came automatically, polished by years of use. She nodded and went back to her phone. The next morning, I called Dr. Alan Reeves because the silence at that table scared me more than the pain. Tests became more tests. Blood work. Stress test. Imaging. A cardiology consult in a room cold enough to make bad news feel official. Dr. Reeves did not dramatize it. Good doctors rarely do. He folded his hands, looked me straight in the eye, and said there was a blockage they could not keep treating with denial and aspirin. Surgery was not a someday conversation anymore. It was a date on the calendar. When I told Lauren, she did not cry. She did not sit down. She stood by the kitchen island in our house in Hudson, Ohio, with the marble counter she insisted we needed, and asked 3 questions. How long would recovery take? Would I be able to sign documents before the procedure? And had I updated my life insurance beneficiaries? Each question was reasonable by itself. Together, they made the air change. I answered slowly, watching her face. She was not cold exactly. Cold has honesty in it. She was practical in a way that felt rehearsed. Over the next few days, the woman who used to leave soup by my laptop became a woman with folders. Blue folders, green folders, labeled tabs. Medical directive. Durable power of attorney. Corporate continuity. Estate review. She said she was protecting us. She said responsible couples prepared. She said I was being emotional when I hesitated. That one almost made me laugh. I was the one facing a surgeon's table, and somehow my hesitation became the problem. Then Derek Holloway started appearing in conversations. At first, he was just Derek from the financial office. Then, Derek says we should simplify access. Then, Derek thinks the company could be vulnerable if something happens before everything is signed. Vulnerable. There was that language again. Not you could be vulnerable, Michael. Not your health matters. The company. The assets. The access. One evening, I walked into the home office and found Lauren studying a spreadsheet with columns I recognized from our corporate valuation reports. She clicked away too fast. I asked what she was working on. She smiled without warmth and said, "Just trying to understand what we actually have." Actually, that word stayed with me. Like our life was inventory. Like the trucks, the warehouse, the house, the accounts, the insurance policies, and even my failing heart were pieces on a board she had finally decided to study. I did not accuse her. I did not raise my voice. I had spent too many years in business to mistake panic for strategy. Instead, I started listening more than I spoke. I noticed when she left the room to take calls. I noticed when she stopped asking about the surgery and started asking about signatures. I noticed when the woman who once helped me build a company now sounded like someone preparing to divide it. And one night, 3 days before they would roll me into that operating room, Derek sent an email he was never supposed to send to me. One line. Hospital timing works in your favor. That was the moment my marriage stopped being sick and became a case. Derek Holloway's email arrived at 9:42 p.m. on a Thursday, while Lauren was upstairs running the shower and pretending privacy had plumbing. I was in the home office, sitting under the soft yellow desk lamp, reviewing driver schedules because normal work still has the nerve to exist when your life is coming apart. The subject line was simple. Updated timing. I almost ignored it, thinking it belonged to a vendor or one of the clinic administrators we worked with. Then I saw the preview. Hospital timing works in your favor. My hand stopped on the mouse. The house around me went quiet in that special way houses do when they are about to become evidence. I opened it. There were only 4 sentences, all polished, all careful, all meant for Lauren. Derek wrote that the filing window would be strongest while I was medically unavailable, that questions about my judgment could be framed with compassion, that emergency financial access would look reasonable if presented as protection, and that the petition should be ready before admission. He did not say steal. Men like Derek rarely use ugly words when clean ones can do the same job in nicer shoes. He said access. He said position. He said leverage. I read it once. Then again. Then I forwarded it to an old email account Lauren did not know existed, took screenshots, printed a copy, and placed it inside a folder labeled Fleet Insurance. There are moments when anger wants to stand up and make a speech. I made a folder instead. That is the difference between pain and strategy. The next morning, Lauren came downstairs in a cream sweater, hair still damp, carrying 2 mugs of coffee like we were a photograph of a healthy marriage. She set mine beside my laptop and kissed the top of my head. The gesture used to mean tenderness. That morning it felt like theater with warm props. "Did you sleep?" she asked. I looked at her hands. Perfect nails. Wedding ring catching the kitchen light. The same hands that had sorted invoices with me in our first apartment. The same hands now pushing papers toward my weakest hour. "A little," I said. She studied me for a second, trying to measure whether I knew anything. I gave her nothing. Men my age learn that silence can be a locked door. She slid a blue folder across the island. "We should get these signed today," she said. "Just so there are no complications." There it was again. Not fear. Not love. Management. Inside the folder were forms giving her broad authority over medical decisions, financial accounts, company operations, and emergency transfers. Some of it looked standard. Some of it had been stretched so far that even I, a logistics guy with no law degree, could smell the trap. One clause allowed temporary control of business assets if I was unable to make decisions for more than 24 hours. Another referenced mental confusion after surgery as a possible incapacity trigger. Lauren watched me read, her face calm, almost encouraging. Derek helped simplify the language, she said. I nodded slowly, as if impressed. Derek seems very involved. Her smile twitched. Just once. He is good at what he does. I wanted to ask what exactly that was. Financial advice? Legal coaching? Helping another man's wife turn a hospital bracelet into a key? Instead, I closed the folder and said I wanted Nathan Brooks to review everything. The room changed temperature. Lauren's jaw tightened before she softened it. Michael, Nathan is your business attorney. This is family planning. Family planning. That nearly got me. Because for 18 years, I thought family meant the two of us facing the hard things together. Apparently, now it meant preparing documents while one of us prepared for surgery. I stood carefully because my chest had started to ache again and told her I was taking the papers to the office. She objected, then caught herself. Too much resistance would reveal too much. By noon, I was sitting across from Nathan Brooks in his downtown Cleveland office, the blue folder on his desk, Derek's email printed. Beside it, Nathan was 51, silver at the temples, with the calm eyes of a man who had seen greed wear every costume imaginable. He read everything without interrupting. Then he leaned back, removed his glasses, and said, Michael, this is not planning. This is positioning. I already knew it. Hearing him say it made the floor feel steadier under my feet. He tapped Derek's email once with his pen. And this was sent to you by mistake? I nodded. Nathan's mouth tightened. Not anger. Recognition. Then we need to move before they do. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than dread. Not relief. Not victory. Something harder. Clarity. Lauren had mistaken my illness for weakness. Derek had mistaken my silence for ignorance. They were both about to learn that a man can be scared, tired, and scheduled for surgery, and still be the most awake person in the room. Nathan did not waste a word. He turned the blue folder sideways, spread the documents across his desk, and separated them into two piles with the clean precision of a surgeon laying out instruments. This pile is ordinary, he said, tapping the smaller stack. Medical authorization, hospital contact preferences, standard estate housekeeping. Then his finger moved to the larger pile. This pile is not ordinary. Outside his office window, downtown Cleveland moved like nothing important had changed. Traffic slid along Superior Avenue. A delivery truck backed toward the curb. People in coats hurried past with coffee cups and lunch bags, carrying their normal problems. Inside that office, my marriage was becoming paperwork with teeth. Nathan marked 3 clauses in red. Temporary business control. Emergency account access. Incapacity certification after 24 hours. Each phrase looked harmless until he translated it. If I came out of surgery groggy, if I needed more than a day to make decisions, if Lauren could get one doctor or one friendly evaluator to describe me as confused, she could step into parts of my company before I was strong enough to sit upright. Not forever, maybe, but long enough. Long enough to move money. Long enough to influence evaluation. Long enough to claim she had been forced to act because her poor recovering husband could not. Compassion makes a beautiful mask when greed needs to enter a room. I sat there listening, one hand pressed lightly against my chest, and felt the last soft piece of me harden. Not because I stopped loving the woman Lauren used to be, because I finally understood that loving a memory could bankrupt a living man. Nathan opened a drawer and pulled out a legal pad. We cannot stop surgery, he said. We cannot control what she files. But we can control what happens if she does. That sentence settled over me like a roof beam clicking into place. For the next 3 hours, we built quiet walls. First, Carter Medical Logistics went behind a stronger operating agreement that required 2 independent signatures for any transfer above $10,000. Lauren did not have one of those signatures. Derek certainly did not. Second, my voting interest moved into a revocable trust with Nathan as temporary successor trustee if I became medically unavailable. Not Lauren. Not a spouse acting under pressure. A lawyer with fiduciary duties and no taste for drama. Third, We updated my medical directive with Dr. Alan Reeves listed as the primary physician for capacity questions, and we limited emergency authority to health decisions only. No business accounts. No corporate transfers. No convenient bridge between my hospital bed and the company bank. Fourth, Nathan drafted a sealed declaration with a timeline of what I had seen and heard. The phone appointment, the blue folder, Derek's mistaken email, and my concern that the surgery was being used as leverage. I signed everything slowly. My chest ached by the fifth signature. Nathan noticed and pushed a glass of water toward me. "We can pause," he said. I shook my head. There are times a man rests because he is weak, and times he keeps going because resting would cost him everything. I kept signing. By late afternoon, the documents were scanned, time-stamped, emailed to the right parties, and stored in places Lauren could not reach. Nathan also sent a formal notice to the company controller, our bank relationship manager, and the insurance administrator. Nothing dramatic, just clean, professional language. No unauthorized changes. No emergency access without trustee approval. No beneficiary updates without direct verified consent from me. Paper trail beats performance every time. When I stood to leave, my legs felt heavier than they should have. Nathan walked me to the elevator. "Michael," he said quietly, "do not confront her before surgery. Let her believe the plan is working." I looked at my reflection in the elevator doors. Pale face, tired eyes, a man with a bad heart and a steady hand. "She already does," I said. That evening, I went home with the blue folder under my arm and found Lauren in the kitchen, waiting too casually. She asked if Nathan had made things complicated. I set the folder on the island and told her he wanted a few minor revisions. Her shoulders loosened. She believed me because she needed to. She poured a glass of iced tea, smiled, and said, "See? I told you we were just being responsible." I looked at her across the marble counter, at the woman who once made invoice templates in a one-bedroom apartment, and gave her the calmest nod of my life. "Responsible," I said. The word tasted different now. It tasted like a trap closing from the inside. Lauren came to the hospital 43 minutes after the envelope arrived, which told me everything about the order of her priorities. A wife rushing to recovery does not arrive after the paperwork. She arrived in a camel-colored coat, pearl earrings, and the kind of careful makeup people wear when they expect to be seen by strangers. Her face changed when she saw me awake. Not much. Lauren had spent years learning how to control a room with a soft smile and a steady voice. But I knew her microseconds. I knew the flicker in her eyes when a number surprised her. I knew the tightness around her mouth when a plan hit resistance. That morning, standing beside my hospital bed, she looked at the envelope on the rolling table and realized the stage had moved without her permission. "Michael," she said, and her voice had moisture in it that her eyes did not. "You are awake." I wanted to say, "Disappointing, is it not?" I did not. Words cost energy, and I was saving mine for the ones that mattered. She stepped closer and took my hand gently, performing concern for Nurse Kelly, who was checking the 4-line with professional neutrality. "I was so scared," Lauren whispered. "They said everything went well, but I did not know when they would let me back here." That was a lie with hospital lighting on it. Families wait. Families ask nurses. Families sit until their backs ache and their coffee goes cold. Lauren had been across town, making sure a courthouse clerk received her petition while I was learning how to breathe through a chest full of stitches. I looked at her hand resting over mine. Perfect manicure. Wedding ring bright. No tremor. "You should have waited," I said. Her thumb stopped moving. "For what?" My voice came out rough, almost broken, but steady enough to land. "Until the anesthesia actually worked." Nurse Kelly went still beside the monitor. Lauren's face did something I had waited 18 years to see and hoped I never would. It emptied. Not completely. Just enough for the mask to slip and show the fear underneath. She glanced at Kelly, then at the envelope, then back to me. "I do not know what you mean." Of course she said that. People who build plans on technicalities always hide inside confusion when the walls move. I closed my eyes for a second because the room tilted and pain pulsed under the bandage in a deep, hot rhythm. When I opened them, Lauren had leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You are medicated. Do not upset yourself." There it was. The first attempt to turn recovery into unreliability. I almost admired how quickly she reached for it. Almost. I turned my head toward Kelly and asked for my phone. Lauren stiffened. "You should rest." Kelly looked between us, then picked up the clear plastic patient bag from the cabinet. He is allowed his belongings if he feels alert. Lauren smiled tightly. Of course. That smile could have cracked glass. My fingers were clumsy, but I unlocked the phone with my face and saw Nathan's message waiting. Filed 9:18 a.m., served 11:06 a.m. Trust active. Company notified. Rest. I did not smile. Smiling would have been too loud. I simply set the phone on my chest and let the message glow where Lauren could see only the edge of the screen, not the words. Who are you texting? She asked. My attorney. Silence dropped so hard, even the monitor seemed louder. Beep, beep, beep. Lauren pulled her hand away slowly, as if my skin had become evidence. Michael, why would you need Nathan right now? I looked at the envelope, then back at her. Why would I not? For the first time since I had known her, Lauren had no prepared answer. She looked toward the door, and I knew exactly who she wanted to call. Derek, the man with the wrong email, the clean language, and the confidence of someone who had never stood in a hospital room beside a man who had already read the board. She pressed her lips together and softened her face again. This is not what you think, she said. That sentence has carried more lies through marriages than any sentence in English. I let it sit between us. Then I said, no, it is exactly what I think. Kelly excused herself, but not before giving me a look I understood. Not pity. Witness. Lauren waited until the door closed before her voice sharpened. You are making a mistake. I took one careful breath. Then another. Pain climbed my ribs, but my mind stayed clear. No, Lauren. You made it for both of us. She stared at me, and behind her eyes I could see the math changing. The timing had failed. The helpless husband was awake. The papers had landed, but so had Nathan's safeguards. She had come to my bedside expecting a weakened man. What she found was a paper trail with a pulse. The first hearing took place 26 days after I left the hospital, and I walked into the Cuyahoga County Courthouse with a cane in my right hand and Nathan Brooks on my left. I was still healing. Every step pulled at the incision beneath my shirt, not sharply, but enough to remind me that my body had survived one procedure and my life was about to survive another. The courthouse smelled like floor polish, old paper, and coffee that had been sitting too long. People moved through security with belts and plastic trays and worry in their eyes. Divorce court has a sound of its own. Low voices, hard shoes, names being called like weather. Reports before storms. Lauren was already there when we arrived. Navy dress, pearl earrings again. Derek Holloway sitting one row behind her, pretending to study his phone. He looked smaller in person than he had sounded in his emails. That is the thing about men who speak in leverage. They shrink when the room has rules. Lauren's attorney stood when our case was called and began with compassion. That word appeared so often I nearly admired the discipline. Compassion for my health. Compassion for the uncertainty surrounding recovery. Compassion for the difficult position Lauren had been forced into as a spouse trying to protect marital assets during a medical crisis. He painted her as a worried wife with a pen in one hand and responsibility in the other. According to him, the filing had not been aggressive. It had been prudent. The request for temporary control over certain accounts had not been opportunistic. It had been necessary. The suggestion that I might not be ready to manage Carter Medical Logistics had not been insulting. It had been cautious. I sat still and listened. My heart monitor was gone, but I could still hear that hospital rhythm in my memory. Beep, beep, beep. Nathan did not interrupt. He let the performance breathe until it ran out of oxygen. Then he stood, buttoned his jacket, and placed a slim binder on the table. No drama. No raised voice. Just paper. Your Honor, he said, we agree that timing matters. Lauren looked down. Derek stopped scrolling. Nathan began with the hospital admission record. I checked in at 5:12 a.m. Surgery preparation began at 6:40 a.m. The petition was electronically submitted at 9:18 a.m. while I was in surgery. Service was arranged before I entered recovery. Then came the email from Derek, timestamped 3 days earlier. Hospital timing works in your favor. Lauren's attorney objected before Nathan finished the sentence, but the judge wanted to see it. Paper moved from hand to hand. Silence spread across the courtroom like spilled ink. Nathan then presented the documents Lauren had asked me to sign before surgery, the clauses granting temporary business control, the emergency account access, the incapacity. Trigger after 24 hours. He did not accuse. He translated. Calmly. Precisely. The way a man describes a lock after finding the key hidden under someone else's glove. Finally, he submitted my revised trust, the company operating agreement, the bank notices, the medical directive, and my sealed declaration created before surgery. Every piece had a date. Every date had a purpose. Lauren had walked into court with a story. Nathan brought a calendar. And a calendar does not care how sincere your voice sounds. The judge leaned back, reading for a long moment. Lauren stared straight ahead, her face composed but colorless. Derek whispered something to her attorney, who told him to stop. That was the first time I enjoyed anything that morning. Not because I wanted revenge. Revenge is loud. This was cleaner. This was the truth finding its chair in the room. The judge denied Lauren's emergency request for control over company operations. Denied access to business accounts. Denied any immediate change to trustee authority. He said concerns about my recovery did not justify extraordinary financial control, especially given the timing and the existing safeguards. Extraordinary. That was the word he used. Lauren flinched at it, because polite words can still leave marks when they are accurate. Her attorney tried to pivot toward marital fairness, but Nathan was already there. He acknowledged the divorce would proceed properly, with valuation, disclosure, and negotiation. No hiding. No shortcuts. No hospital ambush dressed as protection. When the hearing ended, Lauren turned toward me in the hallway outside the courtroom. For a second, I saw the old version of her trying to surface, the soft eyes, the careful hurt, the woman from the apartment with the rattling heater. But memory is not evidence. She stepped closer and whispered, "Michael." I was scared. I rested both hands on the top of my cane and looked at her. The hallway moved around us, strangers carrying folders, lawyers checking watches, lives being divided by people who charged in 6-minute increments. "No," I said quietly. "You were early." Her face tightened. Behind her, Derek looked away. That told me more than any apology could have. The plan had not failed because Lauren felt guilty. It failed because she filed before the man on the operating table had finished making his own moves. The divorce did not end that day, but the illusion did. There is a difference. Paperwork can take months. Attorneys can trade numbers until everyone forgets what the first fight was about. Houses get appraised. Accounts get reviewed. Trucks, contracts, retirement funds, furniture, even the good silver Lauren insisted we register for 18 years earlier, all of it gets reduced to columns on a spreadsheet. But the illusion ended in that courthouse hallway when she looked at me and realized I was not the helpless man she had planned around. I was thinner than before. I moved slower. I needed a cane for a while, and every morning my chest reminded me that survival is not the same as comfort. But I was alive. That mattered more than any valuation report. Carter Medical Logistics kept running. Marcus covered extra routes. The dispatch team sent me short updates instead of long problems. Nathan stayed on every document like a man guarding a bridge. The bank did not release a dime without proper authority. The trust held. The company held. I held. Lauren tried different versions of the same story over the next few weeks. First she was scared. Then she was confused. Then Derek had misunderstood her. Then the lawyer had advised urgency. Then she only wanted to protect what we had built. Each explanation arrived dressed better than the last, but none of them could change the clock. 9:18 in the morning, while I was under bright surgical lights. While Dr. Alan Reeves and his team were doing the work that gave me more years. That timestamp became the nail in every excuse. Derek disappeared from the case faster than he had entered it. His firm sent a letter saying his role had been limited and informal. Informal. Another clean word trying to wash dirty hands. I did not chase him. I did not need to. People like Derek punish themselves by needing to remain impressive in rooms where everyone already knows what they are. As for Lauren, the final settlement was fair, not generous, not cruel. She received what the law said she was entitled to from the marriage. Nothing more. No emergency control. No quiet raid on the company. No reward for timing a betrayal to a hospital schedule. When we signed the last papers, we sat across from each other in a conference room with a long oak table and bottled water nobody touched. She looked older than I remembered, or maybe I had finally stopped lighting her with memory. Before she left, she said, "I did love you once." I believed that. That was the saddest part. The woman who loved me once had been real. So had the woman who counted my assets while I counted backward for anesthesia. Both truths had to live in the same house inside my head. I nodded and said, I know. She waited for more. Forgiveness, maybe. An invitation to turn the ending into something softer. I had no softness left for performance. But love that needs my weakness to win is not love I can honor. Her eyes filled, and for the first time, I did not step forward to fix what I had not broken. A month later, I walked through our warehouse without the cane. Slowly, but on my own. The late afternoon sun came through the loading bay doors in wide gold stripes, catching dust in the air like the place was breathing with me. One of the trucks backed in with a shipment for a children's clinic outside Columbus. The lift gate lowered with its familiar electric hum. Cardboard, diesel, cold air, work. Real things. Honest things. I stood there with one hand resting lightly over the scar beneath my shirt and thought about that old sign Lauren had made in our apartment. Deliver like someone is waiting for their father to come home. I had kept it. It hung in my office, faded at the edges, the ink not as dark as it used to be. For a long time, I thought keeping it meant I was holding on to her. I know better now. It means I am holding on to the man I was before betrayal tried to rename me. I lost a wife. I lost a version of my past. I lost the comfortable lie that loyalty is always returned by loyalty. But I kept my name, my company, my dignity, and the heartbeat she underestimated. Lauren thought. The surgery was the moment I would be too weak to fight. She never understood that sometimes a man does not find his strength before the crisis. Sometimes he wakes up with stitches in his chest, an envelope beside his bed, and finally stops confusing silence with surrender.